Welcome to Horticulture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. If I sound a little froggy, I apologize. I got those good Kentucky allergies going on right now. So I like to think I'm more like Phoebe, and she's got that like her sexy voice she plays guitar with when she's sick, but it's more of a frog.
What's
it's very
this,
it's very
cat?
Kermit,
Smelly cat.
Smelly cat.
So how's everybody doing today?
Good. Strong.
Not seasonal allergies. They're for the weak.
Not weak.
Yeah, we don't have allergies. We're not nasally.
Nope.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you all. They would save me during the apocalypse. Well, I am extra excited because we are kicking off a kind of month of some cut flower episodes, and if you've listened to any episodes so far, I usually find a way to work in something about cut flowers because that's who I am as a person, and I'm just really excited to kick off Kentucky Cut Flower Month, and we're gonna have some cool guests on this month. So I'm just overall really jazzed about this.
I'm pretty excited as well. I have a couple little facts here for you. A couple little bit of information that came out of this study that a psychologist from the University of Harvard Medical School.
I'm sorry, where?
Ever heard of it?
Never
Little known university.
I normally don't intellectually slum it with Harvard material, but in this case, I'll make an exception. They did this thing where they assessed people with and without the presence of cut flowers in their rooms or in their houses, or I think they did it in a couple different environments. And they found from their studies, you can read more about this in a couple of different places, including I think the Harvard blog and about flowers from the Specialty Cut Flower Association, I believe. But they found that when there are in the presence of flowers, flowers feed compassion. Flowers can chase away anxieties, worries, and the blues at home. Living with flowers can provide a boost of energy, happiness, and enthusiasm at work. And a quote here from the principal investigator: "As a psychologist, I'm particularly intrigued to find that people who live with flowers report fewer episodes of anxiety and depressed feelings. Our results suggest that flowers have a positive impact on our well-being." So, what better reason to celebrate for a whole month of cut flowers and even if you don't cut them, just grow them in the ground and love on them. This month, July, Cut Flower Month, I'm also very excited.
Yeah, it's actually also American grown flower month. So we claim it as Kentucky, and you all know that's where we're at. So we also claim it as Kentucky Cut Flower Month, but it is American grown cut flower month. And that is because July is the only month out of the year that every single U.S. state has cut flowers available. So even Alaska. So the Alaska peony season has started up there. So I find that fascinating when you think about it, because you're like, oh, okay. And then you're like, oh, wait, Alaska. So
is Alaska kind of like known for peony production?
So more recently, like it's not something that's been always there, but in the last 10 or 15 years, they've really done a good job of that. And so there are lots of peony farmers, and they supply the world in these summer and late summer peonies now. They're pretty much one of the only places that grow them this time of year. So it's pretty impressive.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think we're celebrating the whole gamut of cut flower grower, cut flower types, cut flowers in different contexts. Mm-hmm. So that could be for sale. That could be for just picking for your home or giving to somebody you think is cute on a date or something, or bringing them to somebody who's a friend of yours. Or family member, that type of celebration as well. It's not just, we tend to sometimes focus on more of the home side or more of the commercial side, but it's kind of a blend of all those.
Mm-hmm.
I think we want to give a shout out, but like in the last few years, we've seen like crazy growth in the number of cut flower growers in the state of Kentucky. We keep track of those because, we're here, but Josh, was Alexis, whoever was there, we have some numbers on that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can give numbers for people who have volunteered to be in the Kentucky, I believe it's the Kentucky Commercial Cut Flower
Mm-hmm.
Grower Association. So people who are looking to sell flowers. And I believe the foundation year was 2019,
Mm-hmm.
the first year where we put this together. We had 35 people that were listed in the directory. And as of this year, actually, as of today, we are up to, let me make sure I get this exactly right, 117.
Yeah.
So that's been in the last 4 years that it's grown pretty significantly.
Yeah.
And it's grown by about that kind of similar size each year. Like we're just getting like it doubled and then, moved on.
Yeah,
So,
I've got some data from the ag census for Kentucky. And so what Josh is talking about is so there's a map. We'll have a link to it in the show notes. There is a map that actually Josh put together, but it is locations of farms. So if you're looking for a farm close to you in the state of Kentucky you can buy flowers from in some capacity, you can get on this map and it'll tell you the farm, how to contact them, their website, whatever, as well as how they sell. So if you're looking for someone close to you who does farmers markets, if you're looking for someone who does roadside stand, whatever that is. So it kind of lists those, and it's a phenomenal map Josh has created. And
thanks.
so, but those are the people who, like he said, have like volunteered to give that information and want to be
Mhm.
on that map. So the data I've got from the ag census, which of course is more about just general farm info, so not everybody wants to be on the map, those kinds of things, and the stuff I have. So in 2017 there were 68 people that were saying that they were growing cut flowers as a farm, going back to kind of that like commercial profitability. So they're growing and selling cut flowers, either just cut flowers or they're selling it as part of another operation. And then now what they're in that census is indicating is that there are 150 across Kentucky. So really not super far off from what Josh is
Right.
saying. We're still seeing that same level of growth, but anytime I can throw a bigger number about how many cut flower farmers there are, I will trump it with a bigger number if the data says that there is one. So,
And
but
that might
either
be the 150 might be people who grow cut flowers in addition to another bunch of other stuff, and they're just saying
right,
they grow that, and so maybe they don't think of
right,
themselves as cut flower growers enough to be part of the association, even
exactly.
though they could be. That's pretty wild. Ray, have you seen like an uptick in interest both locally and statewide, and from
Oh,
your perspective?
yeah, absolutely. I was just talking with some folks from our garden club, and I was related an experience that I had at a spring meeting that we had here in Kentucky, the Fruit and Vegetable Producers Association, and it was amazing that one of the breakout sessions or tracks of um, information there at the meeting was related to flowers and flower production, all things flowers. Alexis was the host, and she kept everybody well in line
I threatened
um,
them.
of that
By
room. But
any means necessary.
yes, by corporal punishment, I believe, was that
Specifically,
the
threats
exact
of
term?
violence.
Listen, we
Yes.
can learn all about how
Um,
to compost
but
dead
Yeah.
things.
yeah,
one
but it
one
was
example
needed.
really sets the tone.
Yeah, it was needed in that room. I tell you why, because the energy in the room was really through the roof, and it was a standing room only kind of thing. They had to bring chairs in. It was a big crowd, so they were very lucky to have Alexis in there running crowd control over that bunch. But yeah, I've seen just the interest. It kind of reflects what you guys are saying. I'm seeing the same thing on the field side with local interest and on a statewide. Kind of scope too. But is this just unique to Kentucky, Alexis? You guys that are tuned into this, Josh, or is this a U.S. thing? Kind of what's going on? Is it regional? What's happening?
Well, 80% of the flowers that, let me just throw some more data at you.
Oh,
80% of the flowers that are sold in the flower market are imported. So that's
Hmm.
mostly
Sure.
South America, but we also have, of course, Holland and places like that. And so there has been a resurgence. And that was something that happened I think it was like started happening in the 60s and kind of got to that full 80% around the early 80s. If you're listening and know those dates are wrong, I know I'm pretty close. Okay. I've given myself a 20-year window. All right. But
I
anyway,
might
so
not
this
be
is
right, but I'll fight you
but
if you
I'm
say I'm
pretty
wrong.
dang close.
It's not going to be wrong if you make your specificity wide enough.
So that kind of there was a lot of farms in the US. I mean, farms for all kinds of stuff, vegetables, all that. Same with cut flowers. And then of course, cheaper labor, all of those things go out of the US. So I think that there has been a resurgence. I know I don't have those numbers because I'm only concerned with Kentucky numbers at the moment, but we've seen that same jump kind of all over the US, with people kind of picking up to fill in those markets again, because try to bring that 80% number down. And I think
Mm,
that shows that there is enough room for people to fill, if we can fill in with American grown, flowers. There's 80% that we can fill and keep it local,
right.
and
Do
have the
you find that
potential
there's some
to.
education needed there? Because you're mentioning flowers produced in countries that could probably not feasibly be produced here in an environment that that is different than our own. Is there any education that's kind of been taking place to get people more accustomed to purchasing things that can be grown locally? Are you
I
seeing that?
I think we kind of almost have to think of if it's the same in the vegetable world, but maybe to a higher
Yeah,
extent in the
sure.
floral world, because there is such a diversity that of things that, in the floral world. But I think we're talking American grown. So what can be grown in Colombia can be grown in California, can be grown in
Mm-hmm.
Florida, and
Can, it
so
can.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
moving those places and the times that you can get them, to the states is possible, but it still is something, you know it is something to think. You're right, it is something to think about whether or not those places can do the large quantities that is
Mm-hmm.
required. Yes, there is some things, in Holland there's a reason they grow a lot of tulips. Their soils are great for it. We don't necessarily have the land space here for that, because a lot of that is taken up in food production, which no shame in that. That's fine. But that 80% is a lot. I mean, when you really think about how high that number is, to think that 80% of flowers are imported into the United States, um, that's a big number that we can significantly reduce, and I think still have pretty much everything that we want. It just might be more of like a time of the year thing. Like you're not going to have peonies in the middle of winter, because there's nowhere in the US we can do that. But
Right. Well, aren't there are certain species, and I'm probably going to show how I don't know very much about cut flowers here, but one of the things that I remember learning, I don't remember where I learned it. That's why I'm not sure if it's right.
Likely.
Is that there are certain advantages to purchasing cut flowers locally beyond how fresh they stay, quote unquote, because you're getting them so soon after they're cut. But like snapdragons, I remember standing out as ones that don't ship well because they can't lay flat. They want to, like, after they've been cut and laid on their side, they'll, like, the plant hormone, like auxin or whatever, will put a curve in them to try to make them stand up straight. Is
Yeah,
that
they're
right?
geotropic, so
Yeah,
they
yeah, that's right.
yeah, they're
Gosh, what
and
class was that? I was that
Does that
like
mean that they'll like chase rocks? Did we?
School of
no,
Rock.
they respond to gravity.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
I
there's
see.
geotropic and phototropic, and some plants are
Mhm.
one or the other, and some are both. So I don't. Um, I know snapdragons are geotropic. I think
Mhm.
gladiolus are geo and photo, so they both go against gravity and towards the light if they
Right.
can. So it's like double. But yeah, so snapdragons are something that they can be harder to ship because of that. Now they have done some ways of like the special wraps that they do that
Right.
they can't bend. So they're a kind of middle of the road version, but like one that we see a lot that is not a good. There's two that I'm thinking of that florists and people in general, whether it's weddings or you're buying from a grocery store, whatever, love, that are really hard to get, from a big wholesaler shipped in, are dahlias and cosmos,
Mm.
because neither of them ship well. They have to be in water, which is much more expensive to ship. They already have short vase lives as it is. Even if you were to pick one fresh out of your garden and put it immediately inside, it has a short vase life, in comparison to most things. So they never come in good. When I've talked to florists, I know that when they order dahlias, because, they might have a bride or something that has to have them. When they order them, they order 2 or 3 times the amount that they actually need because they
Mm.
know they're going to throw away that many, which
Wow.
is just crazy when you think about it. And like, think about how much then they have to charge that bride or that client to get that flower in versus if they were to buy it from a local grower. Granted, has to be in season. They can't just order out of season. But if they bought that from a local grower, they're not going to throw anything away because that
Mhm.
grower is going to want to make a good relationship. So they're only going to bring them, essentially the best. So in theory, they're not going to throw anything away. So how much cheaper it would be, for that client, even if you think about it, it might be more expensive to buy it from local, but is it really more expensive per stem if you're not buying 3 times the amount? So,
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, those are two that there's so many aspects of it. It's not just vase life is better when you buy local. The same thing as we say, like local tomatoes taste better, right? Like it's the same concept of that and that freshness. So yes, in theory, you should have longer vase life if the grower knows what they're doing. But it's also that you're going to get stuff that you can't necessarily get everywhere. So that's kind of the beauty of it.
A little ecological context to what you were talking about, Alexis, with that shift away from mostly domestic flowers to
Mhm.
mostly international flowers. And in 1991, there was a law passed called the the Andean Mountain Range Andean Trade Preference Act, which was, the political line that was given was that it was an attempt to incentivize the development
Mhm.
of quote unquote legitimate industries to try to
Mhm.
combat the drug trade. And as part of that, it waived and or reduced tariffs for imports coming from South American countries, including on cut flowers.
Mm.
And
Was-
so,
yeah.
excuse me, it started in 1991. It was originally for 13 years, but I believe it was then extended as part of another thing. There's information on this from like the U.S. Treasury,
Mm.
but that in essence created the pipeline for really inexpensive international flowers, because the tariff would be the way that the relative labor cost difference would be kind of like, it's, even if you could get cheap labor elsewhere, it could be offset by the fact that they're going to have to pay a tariff when it comes into the United States. So
Right.
All right.
interesting little intersection of politics, history, and cut flowers for you
Love it.
as you're thinking
Forgot
about
about
that. But
that.
it
Yeah.
yeah, that was
That's large
a big
scale.
a
Yeah.
big part
That's
of
Yeah.
that
a
I
big deal.
think
process.
there is movement now to bring that tariff back.
Mm.
The like circles, the circles I run in. No, anybody, the American Society of
Alexis
Cut Flower
had lunch with
Growers.
the Bidens yesterday to talk about the tariff.
The
Cultural
circles.
attaché to
Yeah.
Colombia.
I visit the Pentagon quite often.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. That's all we need to say.
the
You're not allowed to say anymore. I get it. You're not allowed to talk about it.
I can't talk about this further. The Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers is it's actually got some international growers in it, but primarily is American growers. They're heavily involved in bringing that tariff back. And I wish I had thought about looking up more about this because there's been lots of really good meetings, and I've just essentially been reading the cliff notes of them. But there's movement. I don't know if it's gone like through. I'm not sure where it lasts. But if you've heard anything about that, let us know. I'm thinking of the president right now of that association was given some talks about what that looks like, and um, just to support the local growers because there are enough large scale growers now in the United States to be able to say like this isn't fair and
Mm.
we're growing locally, and we think that we need to be given a fairer chance here because we can do what they're doing. And so there some really large ones as well as all this growth, like we've talked about all this growth in flower farming operations, so even the small growers are having an impact on that. I think they're having an impact, but as far as voting was going, it was something around like $100,000 in sales, which I know seems like a lot. I mean, it is a lot, but that's kind of a standard number that's used for
Yeah.
a lot of horticulture operations. And
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to flowers, it's not as big as if you were selling like lettuce or something like that, because you have a much higher dollar amount. You
Mm-hmm.
know, one
Right.
stem is worth a lot more. So, anyways, there's a lot of farms that would be considered small by like
Yeah,
USDA.
that's one of the craziest things about
Mhm.
cut flowers is that people like the dollar per acre
Yeah.
return or at least gross
Uh-huh.
is like insane
Yeah, it's
compared to a
one of
lot
the
of
highest.
especially compared to like commodity crops, like forget about it.
Yeah.
But even compared to other direct marketing crops, it's pretty wild and cool. And like the idea of like intensive small production fits in a lot of places
I think that's why it's
that aren't the
grown so
Great
quickly.
Plains.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the specialty cut flower American Specialty Cut Flower Grower Association reported that their membership in the last 4 years has doubled. So yeah, to your question, Josh, about the like growth elsewhere, yeah, I think that Kentucky's probably growing faster than the country as a whole, but there is still tremendous growth, and I think
Mhm.
that's another interesting like intersection of.
And that's just their membership, right? Like
That's right.
that
That's
doesn't
just their
count
membership.
for the people who can't afford to pay $200 or don't want to pay
Right.
$200 to join that association.
Totally.
So,
Yeah, and it doesn't account for the fact that some of those members have probably grown in size,
yeah,
and they still just
right.
count as one, even though they've doubled their sales. And this is another example of like from the culture of horticulture, the broader cultural impacts of the pandemic, and
Mhm.
what it had on both local foods, but also on cut flowers. That
Mhm.
people they couldn't go places, and they had some money so
Right.
that they were using for not going places, or that they had been using to go places that they weren't using to go places, and they were spending a lot of time in their spaces. Many of
Mhm.
them, not. I'm a homebody. It didn't. I mean, it changed some for me, but some people, it was like the first time that they had spent long hours within their own
Mhm.
house, and then realizing, oh, this space is like improved by these cut flowers, and
Right. Yeah.
Right.
this is really
My
nice. And
anxiety is somehow lower when I look
yeah,
at them.
Right.
as I stare into these snapdragons, I forget the world
Yeah.
seeming to crumble outside my window.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so they had
got us
more
through.
or they grew more. Like the seeds, I think I saw something Johnny's was saying how much like how their seed, vegetables, everything, herbs, all of that, like their
Mhm.
sales increased so exponentially from, COVID because people had time and were home and were looking for something to do at home. So I think a lot of our cut flower, it was already growing before that. Like, we have numbers from 2017, but it grew so much faster that year from people who just wanted, and then they were like, oh, I enjoy this, or it's a good support. Maybe they're still working full time, but it's their teachers, so it's nice for them something to do in the summer, and they sell to their teacher friends. And for some people it is supplemental income, and that's wonderful, and for some people it is a full-time job. And we do have several large farms across Kentucky that I'm not sure if like people knew that like their full-time job is to farm, and they farm cut flowers, and that's it. And now we have some who farm vegetables, and they focus on one or two cut flowers they either bring to market, or I know a big huge vegetable CSA that has decided they wanted to do wholesale sunflowers because it just
Mm.
fit their model, and they need a rotational crop.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to do retail, even though they do like retails with, and they may throw it into a CSA box as a thank you or something, but like they want to add this into their operation to help build their soil and their ecosystem and all that jazz. And then they're going to sell those wholesale. So, and they're full-time farmers, but we have some people who are full-time flower farmers, and they pretty much only do flowers. And I think that's really cool. And a lot of people don't necessarily know that about Kentucky. And we have a great climate for growing cuts here.
Is that what they call them in the biz? You just call them
I know.
cuts.
Yeah,
That was
we
some
just
like
call 'em
sweet
cuts.
slang right
Dang.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
It could be either
she's-
flower farming or mafia. I mean, it works for either.
I know you all are
Maybe it's
not
both.
seeing this. You're not seeing the video. You're just hearing. But Alexis has a leather jacket and has her hair styled like John Travolta in Grease, and she just said cuts.
Cuts.
And
I
she
just
has
like whipped.
M&Ms in the
I whipped
background.
out
I
my
noticed that.
my knife out of my tool belt that I wear, and I
Yeah,
whipped
is that a
my little
switchblade?
knife out. Is that
I'm intimidated.
We call it an open assisted opening. Okay,
We do,
we
yeah.
Sounds less
we call it a
threatening.
switchblade
It's
where I'm
legal.
coming from.
It depends on your intentions, Brett.
I do harvest with a knife personally, so
Yeah.
Machete.
it's part of it.
No.
I have it's not a sickle. It's a no. Do I have a sickle? I forget. There's like a handheld version. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same, and then
The
there's like the
sickle
one the
versus
Grim
the
Reaper
scythe.
carries.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah,
scythe is the
I have
Grim Reaper and the sickle is the
yeah.
hand.
The curve.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a sickle that I use to harvest as well. So, yeah,
Nice.
I have some fancy, really sharp tools that I carry around. Don't ever come up on me in a field because I have
Yeah.
18 different things I could stab you with at in arm's length.
Yeah, she might not sell you a cut, but she'll give you one for free.
Free of
Um,
charge.
anyways, yeah,
Well,
we've
so I was wondering if maybe we talked a little bit about the context. Josh, do you want to maybe just give a little bit of a download on some of the resources and anything else as far as some of the short courses that have been published?
Sure.
I think there's going to be a lot of content coming out. Maybe we could collectively brainstorm who people should be following to make sure that they get the social media and other downloads on Cut Flower Month here in Kentucky, and otherwise talk about that. And then maybe in the last little bit we can talk about like if you wanted to have a cut flower garden or shop for cut flowers or look for, get a bucket of flowers and do some arranging. Maybe we could talk about that in the last little bit.
love it.
Sure. Yeah. To speak to the resources, we'll have a link for it, but the CCD has like kind of a landing page that has a collection of a lot of different cut flower resources, how-to videos, crop profiles, and kind of reference sheets. One that Alexis and I put together about like kind of what flower species need as far as like post harvest. Do they need cooling? Are they room temperature? What's the story with kind of dips and like hydrating solutions? Like it's a nice little breakdown of what species require what. That might help somebody kind of streamline and sort of grow things that have a similar process. As well as a couple of cut flower budgets, things of that nature. Oh, and I wanted to bring up that cut flower track that was at the Fruit and Vegetable Conference. That was all recorded. There was, let's see, about 8 or 9 different topics that we ran through on that day. And those are all recorded and they're now available online at that same kind of landing page. So you can even, including listen to Alexis get people under control. But listen to a lot of experts talk about different topics.
These are YouTube videos.
Yes,
and they're like things about marketing, but also things about like the cut flower.
All specifically.
Market, is that what it's called?
The cut flower, the Kentucky cut flower market. We talk about that. But yeah, kind of. There's people talking about drying cut flowers, record keeping, evaluating profitability. Stuff about florist surveys, do's and don'ts, things like that.
Yeah, I'll just take a brief moment to shout out Alexis and Kristen and Josh and the folks at the Dakota and Cindy at the Horticulture Council. Bethany at the Horticulture Council have done a really great job of responding to the need and the clear demand for information about cut flower stuff. My colleague Savannah presented some stuff about some marketing related, and I just think that was something we do see it from some extension systems or some other groups, but I'm really proud and excited to see all the stuff that you all have put together and put out there to support people. Because like as you're talking through this is like a lot of really good information. I can understand why people in the room were so amped to do it. So anyway, that's just my brief.
Yeah. Well, and in addition to that short course track that has a lot of nice stuff there, ongoing for the last, I guess, about 4 years, there's been the virtual cut flower short course that, similarly, like I want to say it started out quarterly and has maintained a similar sort of 4-a-year tempo.
Yeah, it's the goal. Sorry, I'm interrupting here.
Cool.
It's kind of like 4 a year, but it's quarterly for the flower farmer. So the goal is to, number one, get you the info that you need before you need it.
Mhm.
like actually have to put it into action, and also get you when you are less busy. So you're not going to see them in like a true quarterly fashion. They're kind of going to be crammed more, late fall into late winter,
They
like
average
timeline.
quarterly, but they're not evenly spaced.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that it's something that you can attend and ask questions if you want to, and that you have that information available to you before you have to put it into like actual work.
Right.
So, anyways,
Yeah, and that is an ongoing thing that people can express interest in and find out about, when those are occurring. But all the ones that have occurred in the past have also been recorded and are available online, so you can kind of go through some of these topics, even though we talked about them years ago. Still relevant stuff there. And I think, oh, and at that same page, there's also the map we've been talking about, the cut flower growers and where they are, where to find them, connect to their social media and stuff like that. Um, and that's kind of what we have compiled together from like a resource standpoint to assist cut flower growers with production and marketing and things like that.
can
Yeah,
I
and if
brag
you're
on a few of those courses like really quick, just because more
Sure,
people
sure.
know?
no, I'm just
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. Yeah,
listen,
that's
I'm sorry, whose podcast is this? It's
Um,
yours, ma'am.
it's
right.
not. It's all of
So,
ours, but
okay, if
I
you
love
say
Right.
it.
so. If you say
Um,
so.
so
It's collectively owned, singularly run.
Yeah, we got a lot of sickles. You know what I'm saying?
Um,
Yeah.
sorry, I just ate a peanut butter cup and now it's stuck in my throat.
Uh-oh.
So, just a few, in case you're like, I wonder what's on there, just to entice you a little bit more with those. A couple that they're all, in my opinion, really great. But if you're wanting to know maybe what to start, like if you've just been dabbling and you're wanting to expand, or you're just wanting to start in general, growing cut flowers. We have a cut flower grower, Riverbend Farm, going over their top 5 favorites.
Mhm.
We have the cut flower calendar. So if you're trying to figure out how this might work in your schedule or what you should be doing every month, there's some stuff on that. Recently, this year, we had those of you who are in the flower world have probably heard of Farmer Bailey Hale. Went to UK, so shout out. He talked all about Lizzie Anthus. That was huge. We had 700 people live on
Yeah.
that course, and three countries represent 4 countries represented. A lot, like in addition to the US, so like woohoo! But Kentucky was awesome as part of that, and then if you're having trouble with social media, how do you do this with cut flowers? If you're new to that, figuring that out. We did one on farm design and layout. So, again, if you're kind of new
Yeah.
or you're looking to buy a farm, just thinking through some really basic things, which they seem basic, like where to lay your water out, how to organize your fields, but like sometimes it's really nice. So we
Yeah.
have Dr. Higgins talked about that. But the upcoming one that we have is going to be in November, and it's going to be with Lindsay Beal. So she owns Wild Root Flower Co. So shout out to The Dirt on Flowers. That is another podcast. If you're a flower person, go check them out. Bloomhill and Wild Root Flower Co. Do that. And so she is doing our next one, and she's going to talk about budgeting and financial analysis, but specifically for cut flower growers. So I don't think we get enough of that, and just, how she kind of does that in a realistic way. Specifically for flowers. And I don't think cut flower growers get a ton of that. So I'm really excited to have Lindsay, and she's super fun and awesome. So I'm shouting
Yeah.
them out right now. So that is,
But
and it's free.
I'm glad you mentioned that one, the Dr. Steve Higgins talking about
Yeah.
the farm layout and design. That was awesome. Because it's like you say, it's like some simple concepts, but a lot of times when we, you know, have a farm or
Yeah.
step into a farm, it's already laid out in a way that, according to the way somebody else set it up,
Mhm.
right? And so you're kind of inheriting a system, and
Uh-huh.
his way of talking about it and getting you to kind of like question some of those things and make some
Yeah.
adaptations to kind of
Or in
improve
the
it.
reverse, it can be just as challenging if you have a blank slate. So like that's kind of
Yeah,
what I had,
right.
and it's It's funny. So it's like I farm, right? But I'm an extension agent. So in my office where I'm sitting, I'm the person people call with questions, right? I'm the quote unquote expert. And there are other people I go to, including people on this podcast who know a lot more about different things, but people are calling me. So it's like when I'm at my own farm, I'm like, I need to call somebody. And then I'm like, I'm supposed to be the person I call. So I have to ask myself, I have to like ask Extension Alexis, I have to like switch hats and ask Extension Alexis questions and how she would respond. But blank slates can be just
Oh
as
yeah.
challenging. And that was super helpful to know like what I've been doing, what I've set up that was right so far and what was
Mhm.
wrong and but and it's funny because like he's not a cut flower person, but he's really good at farm design layout, and I think he did an excellent job. So shout out
Yeah.
Dr. Higgins.
And as far as the July Cut Flower Month celebration / highlights, I think a couple people you might want to follow if you're on Insta. And let's just be real, if we're doing cut flowers, probably on Insta, not as much on Facebook. Or I mean, am I speaking out of turn on that, Alexis?
I think that if you're in it for the pretty pictures and inspiration, then go to Instagram. If you are in it for you want to follow a local farm because maybe you want to purchase for them, I mean, still you like pictures and stuff. Most of them also have Facebook pages. So it just kind of depends what you're into. If you just really want to feel inspired, if you just like to scroll and see pretty inspiring things, then Instagram's a good way. But most of them also have a Facebook. So I think it just the audience is very different there.
Yeah, and I'd imagine a lot of individual independent websites as well for
Yes.
folks who with contact information. But anyway, Kentucky Horticulture Councils will be doing a lot of stuff. I gave them a shout out earlier for the work, the collaborative work that all these different people have done to develop this cut flower stuff. They're KY Horticulture on Instagram, a couple other places. They're on Facebook as well, but I guess who else as far we do occasionally have stuff on the CCD Instagram and other places. That's CCD UKY is our handle there. Alexis, any others as far as like the cut flower month content specifically? Because they'll be highlighting a bunch of farms and stuff during
Yeah.
that month, which is a good way to, if you're looking to increase your follows of Kentucky cut flower people, that'd be a good place to go.
Yeah, I would say that, and you can follow Kentucky Proud, Kentucky Department of Ag. I think we'll have some specials, or they better
They
on.
better.
We're surely sending them things, but
It won't just be
on
the cut. It won't
that,
just be flowers getting cut. You know what I'm saying?
I will come for you.
Yeah.
So they'll have some stuff as well, and then use that map that Josh has been talking about. If you're just like, I want to know about more cut flower farms in my area, so go on that map. That will again link and see who's close by, and you can click the farm and follow their farm through social media or check out their website or something like that, and create some community, right? Because horticulture, we talk the culture, right? A lot of that culture is forming that community. So if you are a new grower, find a community. And so sometimes those people are really close by to you. They're down the road and they're another flower farmer. Sometimes they are just the woman who has been growing, peonies, and she has 100 peony plants that she just enjoys. She will give you more information than probably any cut flower official, publication that I can give
Mm-hmm.
you on peonies. She will probably top all of that. Make friends with her, eventually ask her to dig some of her peonies. But anyways, learn from her. But it might be somebody like, I think some of my own personal closest like cut flower community aren't even in my state, but they're similar to me in some way. The like when they started, their size of their operation, their humor maybe are very similar to mine, and so a lot of them are from totally different places, and so I encourage that, and also be aware that I feel like I have to say this because we're pushing social media, but regardless of what you're following for social media, follow people who inspire you to do better. If you're scrolling through and those beautiful pictures are intimidate you and make you feel bad about what you're doing, it might have nothing to do with that person. That person's great. What they're doing is fantastic. But if they make you feel down about what you're doing, just like hide their posts. You can still go look at them and stuff, and it's not personal. But like I've had to do that because I see everybody else's highlight reel and their beautiful farm, and I'm like, well, I can tell you about the lamb's quarter that's 8 foot tall in my in my bed right now, and I am not joking about that. I measured it.
It's edible.
It's more of a lamb's
edible.
$50 at this
Lambs.
point.
Oh man,
There he is. There he is.
There
Showing
it
up.
is.
Thank you.
Coming
for that one.
alive.
But
Dozed
anyway,
off there for a second. I'm back.
He's back. He's back. All right.
Yeah,
Don't
I mean
forget.
that's a danger in general with social media,
Yeah.
both in our personal lives, but also more broad, like within or less broadly within the horticulture world. Is it part of what we're trying to do? Is sell some aspect of illusion? I mean, that's what marketing.
I live in illusion.
Yeah, I mean, marketing is like turn your back, like turn 12 degrees so that all the weeds are out of the shot.
Right.
Let me take this picture because I look cute because I just got out of the shower not 30 minutes ago and I was crying out in the field because the irrigation sprung another leak, right? Like it's a different it's
You
different
put the good
thing.
beets up front that make people pull over and say, I need to buy some beets.
Yeah. Put the
Which is
Kanye beats up
saying
Those are
front.
your money beets.
Exactly. And like I think that is a good PSA, both in terms of like, yeah, you hide it or like get it out of your face if it's causing you tension, but at the same time realize that the people who are on the other end of pressing publish on that post probably had the same exact thing last week when they saw somebody else. Like it's this and nobody's trying to do that. They're just trying to sell a really strong image and brand, but it does have the sometimes the unintended consequence of destabilizing and inspiring insecurity. And nobody's really trying to do it. You know, it's not like Alexis is like, I know Brett's peonies look like shit this week. I'm gonna post this picture of mine. Ha ha ha. It's never like that. It's more like, oh no, Alexis.
Actually, so funny that you bring up Brett's peonies because his wife has some peony plants, and where they live in Lexington, listen, he can say what he wants, but where they live in Lexington, they have a heat sink there, right? And I am another 45 minutes south in but out in the middle of the field, and I get some cold temperatures. So his peonies always bloom 10 to 14 days before mine, and I am always so mad.
They do.
And I'm always like, Brett and Annie have peonies. Why aren't my peonies blooming yet? And I have to remember that, you know,
need to
climate.
get some kind of device that converts your anger into heat for your plant.
And I mean, honestly, I get like 2 to 3 extra days because Annie makes me go and sleep curled up around them at night. So that, just so you know, that is a no, don't do that.
You can absolutely do that. It's fine, but just I don't know. I feel like everybody says it, but just like another reminder to not compare yourself in anything. And farmers, don't compare yourself to other farmers because quite literally the soil 5 feet away from the soil you're standing on could be different, let alone a whole other farm. So do what you can with what you got. That's my PSA. And I got real sassy there. And if anybody watched, I'm doing like some hand motions.
Yeah, she got her switchblade back out.
I got my switchblade
dwelling
back
on
out.
these peonies.
Is it like a
gel?
dance fighting style or
Yeah,
right.
Capoeira?
I've got like I'm like hold my hoop.
It's either sign language or a dance battle. I can't tell which.
It could be both. Does it have to be? Can I communicate through my dance? I
believe that's a thing.
It says a lot.
Kind of a thing.
Says a lot.
But anyway, we got way off topic. I mean, not off topic, but on a different.
I think this is on
side
it's on
of it.
We were off topic, but we were on one. So
you wanted to talk
on
about
brand,
Brett.
for sure.
Well, I just thought maybe we can wrap up with like one thing I learned over COVID. I had my own awakening about horticulture and gardening and everything else, and it was really the realization or the acceptance or whatever that not every square inch of space that I'm going to be cultivating needs to be used for food production, and that there is this whole element of other stuff. And, going beyond our podcast maybe a month or so ago about, what's the things besides money that motivate you, but there's also not just,
food.
Man or human cannot live by vegetables alone or by just food alone. and in reality, that the cultivation and creation of a space that gives you this feedback that has all those things I was mentioning earlier about the effect on depression and anxiety and worry, and in a time where I was very, very anxious and very, very worried, even more than usual, about the world and everything else.
As someone who eats their feelings, there are also edible flowers. So it all comes back.
Yes, indeed
I was going
there
through like 4 pounds of nasturtium a day, just sucking
Lamb's
them
quarters.
down. Yeah, lamb's quarters. Yeah,
Is it a weed?
exactly.
Is it lunch?
Is it spinach? Who knows?
If you eat enough, it'll just it'll get out before the toxins leach. No, but I realized like, oh, this is an aspect of of this that I hadn't really explored before. We had a big garden, but it was always like it had a very industrial feel. Like it felt like a production field. And so walking out into it was really stressful, actually, because it would be really weedy. It would be really whatever.
Yeah, it was a space of labor, right?
Yeah. And so we've shifted, but part of that was cut flowers, and then realizing I had not realized that like Alexis, others as well, like and I've gotten them from a number of different places, do these DIY buckets where you can buy flowers and do the arranging yourself, so you don't have to grow the flowers, you don't have to buy a finished bouquet. There is a middle space there. And so I just thought, like, if somebody's interested and maybe they're not the person who's going to get into commercial
Green
growing of
thumb
this, or maybe they're not even going to garden at all, or maybe they want to grow stuff. Like, do we have a top 5 or a handful of things that come to mind as the usual suspects of the cut flower experience, and things that are maybe easier to grow or whatever? Like, maybe we could throw that out there. I'll say one thing before I shut up. Is the thing that I did not realize or didn't think about before is that, okay, so we say cut flowers, right? Greenery, foliage, fillers. That category makes the hugest difference in terms of your like arrangement and like a base to operate from. So that's something that, maybe we could talk about that as a whole other topic at some point. Maybe talk about the floral design or something with somebody who does it, better than me. But that was a big one for me. And so I'm starting to think about like, okay, can I grow some stuff that I can use as greenery, or take stuff that I have and use it as greenery? And I've used hydrangea leaves, I've used elderberry leaves, and like an ikebana minimalist arrangement was like with lilies that you grew. It was like like very moving to me. But so anyway, but that's my little tidbit there. Last year I had a couple of my friend Sean brought me several buckets of flowers for my birthday that we then arranged into like 10 or 12 like pretty large displays, or pretty large bouquets.
It's fun.
Extremely fun. But anyway, so do you all have some
thoughts?
Yeah, some thoughts on any of that?
So this question I am going to try to not overdo.
Yeah, I also have this little. These are a little on the back end of their life, but maybe there's some species in here that might spring to mind. Some things.
Yeah. Ooh, look, some Sir Wowies status. I love it. It's also called rat tail status, which I mean, it's pretty accurate, but
harder
it's
to market that.
Sir Wowie, that's the Latin. But it sounds fun. So, yeah, I think it depends on time of year, but let's just say for most people, they can handle like a summer, kind of a warm weather garden. So, the first one has to be zinnias, because everybody knows what they are. But for those of you who went, like just now when I said that, and everybody knows the sound and face that I just made. There are so many. Zinnia isn't like your grandma's zinnia anymore. Not that there was anything wrong with grandma's zinnias, but if you are a zinnia like hater, and they're out there, because you don't necessarily.
So let's just call it what it is. They're kind of like, because they're easy to grow. They're kind of like basic, right?
Yep.
They seem basic summer bouquet. They're like,
that's why I love them.
They're like I started with. That's what
watered down sunflower, like right. That's the thumbing your nose at it. But you're saying not all zinnia is not a zinnia is not a zinnia.
Yeah. So totally love them for who they are, but realize that we've come a long way in zinnia breeding, and so there are a lot of fantastic colors and even shapes and sizes now. So if you're one of those people that very boho muted feel, look into the Queen Lime series. For those more
You say
muted
Queen of Lime?
tones.
Queen Lime?
Queen Lime
Queen
series.
Lime. Yes,
So there's
Queen
Queen
Lime.
Lime Orange, Queen Lime Red, Queen Lime Blush. There's a bunch. So look into that series. And then there's some really light pinks if you're more into that. I grow a huge range of them and love all of them, but understand that very like, I don't know. It's like some of them just are like, I think there's a mix called like circus, and that is how they look and feel. And it's
Have
not
you
for
gone
everybody.
through? Would you say you've gone through a period of like relationship change with zinnias? Did you used to thumb your nose at all?
I don't know if I've always grown them, but I do
Yeah.
not like certain varieties, and
Gotcha.
I've really like gone down in the colors and the types that I grow. So I do thumb my nose at some varieties, but
Gotcha.
not ever zinnias. The next one I would tell you is celosia. Again, another one that everybody knows. That one's also called coxcomb, but celosia, tons of shapes and sizes. You can have ones that look like brains, others that are more fan shaped, a coral, others that are like pretty plumes of they look like smoke or not smoke, like fire coming up. And they also come wide variety of colors, those nice burgundies all the way to those bright golds, and there's some greens and stuff now. So don't really explore kind of what shape and size. I grow an entire row of those of just different types of celosia because it's my favorite. I'm really excited. There's a variety that is called like Texas vintage rose mix, and the foliage is beautiful. So the plant itself is like just beautiful before it even blooms, and it's these different shades of like reds and like, or not reds, burgundies and golds and like dark greens and like, I don't know, real muted tones, and I'm sandy colors, which Josh is like gross, but
Feels
I
like
love.
you should listen to like some Willie Nelson while you pick
It's
that.
just I love it. I
Redheaded
love it so much.
stranger, with your vintage red Texas.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
What I was really laughing at was the editing where it was like they're red, not red, burgundy.
Burgundies, maroons, just
A
some
lesser
vintage
mind would say
shades.
red, but that's
Yeah.
not what we're doing here.
Red is
Yeah.
basic. We don't go for that.
So celosia, so
Sort of a
zinnia, celosia.
childish garnet.
Yeah. It's
A
whimsical.
whimsical color.
And then one that is great if you want to dry flowers. So you can also dry celosia, and it dries really well. But I like flowers when I'm telling people who want to just like have a nice garden for themselves. Like, hey, extend your season, keep those flowers, do an everlasting bouquet and enjoy them all winter. You can grow something like gomphrena, which is also called globe amaranth, and it comes in lots of different shades, and it's just this cute as a button because it just kind of looks like a little button, and it dries exactly the way it looks, holds its color phenomenal, is wonderful. You can use it in wreaths. If you grow the red one, it's great in like Christmas wreaths and stuff. So I really like to tell people to do that one. And then sunflowers are one, and sunflowers are another one that, like, I don't know, they're hit or miss. Like, I don't grow a traditional sunflower anymore. I grow like really, white colors or the deep burgundies or the really fluffy ones because I feel like they're really boring, but that's me. And I know a lot of people just find so much happiness in just a beautiful yellow sunflower, whether they cut it or leave it in the garden for the birds. So there's lots of varieties there too, if you're interested. Now, I have to point out, I'd be amiss if I didn't point out some things that pull double duty. So an example of this is thornless raspberries. So if you're looking to plant some raspberry plants, most people do thornless. Joan Jay is a really great variety. And she is great foliage. So speaking about foliage, and so I harvest it for foliage pretty much all season, but early in the season, especially when there's not much else. But it's also what I snack on in the field. Like every morning I get raspberries for breakfast, and then, I might pick some greenery. Some other things that are great for double duty is blueberries are another really good one, but they're pretty slow. That's why the raspberries are so great, because they're quick. And then like any of your mints, so apple mint, pineapple mint, even spearmint, all of those are great.
Oh yeah.
And just be careful where you plant them because they're going to take over.
Because they win.
They will beat everyone. Okay.
Mhm.
So, and oregano is another really good one. Like a traditional oregano has a beautiful
Yeah.
purple flower, but it's also a good foliage. So if
Are
you're
you familiar
looking,
with Kent's Beauty oregano?
yes, I have
I
some.
just got some. Wow.
I know, it's wow.
Wow.
It's a wow. So that one's more for like almost like a hanging
It's a
basket.
dangler. It's a
Yeah, it's a
dangler.
dangler, and she don't look like oregano. So
Yeah, it looks
but
kind of like oregano crossed with eucalyptus or something,
yes,
and,
I would
and like
agree with that.
shrunken down. And
Yeah,
but the tips before they
are pink.
flower, they look like before they turn pink, they look like little cabbages on the tip of a stem, kind of. And I said that when I picked it out, and then I brought it home, and without anything, Annie was like, "Oh look, they look little cabbages," and I was like, "Oh god, we're hanging
Um,
out too much."
we need some space. Um, but yes, and there's going like to throw back if you're like Alexis, you're going too fast, I cannot write all of these things down or whatever. There's a good list that Michelle Wheeler, I'm pretty sure, is the one who did in her top 5
Mhm.
for kind of getting started, and she mentioned some that I don't mention, and not because they're bad, just because we could talk for hours literally on this. But so if you want to check that out, she go on that, follow the link, go on that page, her top 5, and then she throws some honorable mentions in there, and they're the easy ones, and she's coming at it from a commercial cut flower perspective. But that doesn't mean that you can't grow it if you're growing one of each. Like you can,
Right.
that's the beauty of it, is you can grow one plant or you can grow 5,000 plants. Anything in between is fine.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm so excited.
You're saying every rose has its thorn, but not every raspberry.
Right.
You've been
Some
working
are
on that one. That
thornless.
one's like
That was the second. That's the second verse people forget about, is the second part of the chorus. Well, that's. I mean, that sounds like we could go on and on about this, obviously, and we will have more episodes about cut flowers this month with some other folks who are getting pulled in, and we can talk with them. I know that I have explored one of the cool things about the cut flower growers that I have come across is that they tend to be very, very smart, very communicative, very multi-talented. And as such, they've actually been either interviewed or they put out their own kind of blog materials and stuff, sharing some of this information. Because honestly, I can say, just like growing stuff in a garden makes you realize, oh, I have 4 tomatoes. I'm going to probably need more than that to eat this week. I'm going to go and buy from people who are doing this. It kind of gives you a real reality check about what it takes to grow good stuff. I can say growing flowers has taught me that the cuts, some of these people that Alexis has mentioned, the stuff that's coming from them, the quality and the vase life and all that other stuff is a really impressive feat. And so growing flowers has led me to buy more flowers. And I think that's part of your all scheme that you've been up to.
Yeah,
It's just like, give us just a little taster.
there's a few people around the state who do grow kits, and so it's like the exact same stuff they're growing, the same colors, everything, and then that's how they get you, because you're growing your own, and you're like, this is so awesome, I'm gonna need more.
Yeah, I want to make a bouquet that's like large and makes an impact, so I'm gonna need like 40 stems or more.
But it's so exciting because like you grew part of it, so it's just, and then you get to arrange it all. But until those DIY buckets, and again going back to that
DIY
map
buckets
that we
are just, that is a slippery slope.
And it makes you appreciate how much money you're spending on flowers, because they are local flowers are more expensive than flowers you're going to get at Kroger and Walmart. Facts are facts. It's just the way it is. You're going to get a better quality product, just like we always say with vegetables. But if you try, and just like when you grow your own tomato plant, you really appreciate how much you're spending when you go buy them from the farmer's market, because you know how hot it is outside in July.
Yeah, you know what it takes.
You know what it takes.
Well, we've talked on and on here. I think I'm going to skip the traditional recap and just say we do have some resources that we've mentioned, and this is Cut Flower Month. July is Cut Flower Month, so get out there and celebrate with a DIY bucket or a bouquet, or just noticing something and taking a nice picture and posting it to sending it to a friend or posting it on your social media. I'm excited to talk more with some people we have coming up this month, and if anybody else have anything to add, we can take us on out, Alexis.
Awesome. Well, I hope that I didn't dominate this too much, but I am uber excited about flowers. If you have any questions about flowers, about horticulture, whatever, please feel free to reach out to us. Our email is in the show notes. You can also follow us at Hort Culture Podcast on Instagram, and you can comment or send us a message on there, and we'll check that out. If you have ideas for shows, you can also leave us a review on a show that you have liked. If you've enjoyed this or have enjoyed any of them, please feel free to leave us a review so more people can find us. And with that, as we grow this podcast, we hope that you will grow with us. Join us next week. We're going to talk about some fall gardens with y'all. So thanks for being here today.